Greetings, welcome to my channel. This is an electric guitar lesson. It's improv using modes, pentatonic scales with the blues note, arpeggios and chord tones, pivot arpeggios, and then parallel modes. So it's going to be kind of a master lesson, and you can get most of this up on my GitHub repository, which I'll have a link to, with neck diagrams. And the neck diagrams are formatted in different ways. It shows the notes, it shows in one format, shows fingerings in another format, and it shows the intervals relative to root is another format. And so I don't have arpeggios up there. You can get those in many different places. I recommend this book, Soloing Strategies by Tom Kolb. And we're going to reference this a bit. So starting up in my GitHub repository under the music, what'll take you right there, it's intervals, or it's scales, and I'm in scales intervals. So the full URL is github/stevemac321/music/scales/intervals. And you can go fingerings or notes too if you want, but I'm at intervals for this purpose. And so I'm going to start. I'll play through the modes. Now, these aren't all the modes. What these are scales of inversion that basically play every note in the key of C up to the 12th position, starting at the first position to the 12th position. And so you could say it's in the key of C or in the key of A minor or in the key of, all of the modes that don't have a sharp or flat. So we'll start with E Phrygian, since E is the lowest note on the guitar. And then at the 12. Okay, so that's 3. Then we go here to what's here. Let's follow the neck diagram. I don't want to ad lib here because you'll be looking at the neck diagram. So then that's E Phrygian with the key parent of C major, we're going to say. And here's G Mixolydian, parent key of C major, and that is the 5 degree. So this is the 3rd degree, the E, and the G is the 5 degree of the C scale. Made a mistake there. I'll do it again. Okay, so that's G Mixolydian. And then the 6th degree, so we go 0, 5, 6, is Aeolian. It's also known as relative minor. Now some people play it like this, so you don't have to shift. But the shifting, do it both ways. And then after Aeolian, we go to the 1 degree, C Ionian or C major. And then the next is at the 10th fret, and it's a Dorian, the 2nd degree of the key of C major. Okay. Then also in the Kolb book, you want to be able to play these starting on page 58. You want to be able to play them in different starting points. So I started here, but you can start here with using your forefinger and going 10, 7, 8. So you want to be able to do that with different, all the different modes, starting at different places. And so we played the Aeolian here. And here's another A. The same thing. And so let's focus on the minor modes, okay? I want to reduce your soloing criteria. Now, if you're a jazz player, this video is really not for you. I'll have to recommend someone else. This is for rock players if you're like me, you mostly play in minor. and you play like A. If we're playing in minor, then you have A minor pentatonic, Aeolian, Dorian is another minor mode, and Phrygian. So you have 3 minor modes and the pentatonic with adding the blues note often. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to mix and match those primitives along with chord tones. Chord tones is sort of the key to making your solo sound musical. Okay, so next up is arpeggios, chord tones, and we're going to start with pivot arpeggios since they're the easiest to remember. So for minor, here's a canonical A minor pivot arpeggio, starting with the 5th, going to the 3rd, minor 3rd that is, to the root, to the flat 7. So the major pivot arpeggio is here. That's A, though. That's A. So there's 2. I'm going to refer you to my video on the cage system. There's 2 of them. I'll put links to both of them. In one of them, I harmonize the arpeggio, the pivot arpeggio. So you're playing pivot arpeggios all in the key of C. This is in parallel fashion. So I'm going to play A major pivot arpeggio, A minor, A mixolydian, A dominant 7, excuse me, and then A half diminished. So that's playing different modes using the same starting point A. So they're in different keys, but that's the concept of parallel modes, okay? Because we're going to move to that later. Parallel mode is when you play related modes, like for example the minor modes, A, Aeolian, and then D, Dorian, and E, Phrygian are the harmonized minor modes in the key of C, where you're playing them without any sharps and flats, right? Here, let's go ahead and jump ahead to that lesson right now. So that's A Aeolian. Then to play Dorian in the key of C is D Dorian. And then E Phrygian is in the key of C, no sharps or flats. The idea of playing it in parallel, though, is that you're allowed to play any minor mode even if you go out of key. They're somewhat related. You try to make it sound good. So if I'm playing an A minor, I can play Aeolian, A Aeolian. I can play A Dorian, not D Dorian, but A Dorian. And I can play A Phrygian. Okay, now you're getting some dissonance there, so you want to use it with prudence, or maybe you want that type of effect, but you want to be thoughtful about it. So that's the idea of parallel modes, is you play, you go out of key modally. Okay, we'll talk more about that as we come up. So then the next step is arpeggios in general. So arpeggios vertical, let's call them. And so you can play all the chord tones in A minor on the neck. The same as the scales of inversion. So you can get those in Kolb page 82. And so we're just going to focus on 1 and 4 to start with. So pattern 1 is this one. We're in A minor, A minor 7th. Arpeggio pattern goes. Okay, one bar. And then the 4 pattern. And so, by the way, I want to make a note here that this minor 7th pattern is at the 5th fret, the same as the A minor pentatonic, which we'll get to in a bit, and the A Aeolian scale. Okay, so that's good to remember. Pattern 4 goes over the E Phrygian position, and it starts at position 12, and it's pattern 4. Okay, so those are the two main arpeggio patterns that you want to learn, but also to learn chord tones. I've got inverted chord scales, I call them, in my book, and it's a bunch of chords, and so you can, we probably won't cover that this time, but these chords are ways to increase your chord tone vocabulary, since they go beyond sort of the scale type paradigm, and they're just more chord positions where you're playing the chord tones anyway. You'll figure it out if you start playing around with them, right? So, for example, this is A minor 7, right? And so it's in that position. And so then there's different ones, right? But we won't. Don't want to dogtail right now. So we did pattern 1. And pattern 4. And then learn pattern 4 at the top, because it goes with the pivot arpeggio. Okay? So you can take your pivot arpeggio and extend it to there. And then you can slide down into your pattern 1. So you can connect from here. Okay, so I just connected 3 arpeggios. So get the treble notes of pattern 3, and that's actually 2 and 3 also. Up here you can oops. So use that pivot arpeggio as kind of home base, and then filling around it the pattern 4, the pattern 3 treble, the pattern 2 treble, and then slide down into pattern 1, the full vertical. Okay, so that gives you a pretty rich vocabulary of chord tones in A minor 7. Okay, so let's move on to adding to our vocabulary the A pentatonic. So A minor pentatonic. Okay, and so I have that in my neck diagrams, minor pentatonic, and there's different patterns. So we'll focus on, well, I guess we can focus on all of them. So pattern 4 sits over the Phrygian, so it goes like this. And then the pattern 5 will back up to 3, because it's the one that's nutward from pattern 1. So that goes. And then I just played 1. So, by the way, well, we'll talk about that in a second. Then pattern 1, I just played. Then pattern 3 starts at. Does that start here? So these are all related too. So map these in your mind to the arpeggio pattern, right? Because this sits on top of arpeggio pattern 2, and the pattern 1 pentatonic sits on top of arpeggio pattern 1, and so on. So map these different pentatonic patterns on top of the arpeggio patterns and on top of the diatonic, right? So like at the 5th fret, you have your A minor pentatonic, and you have your A Aeolian, and then you have your pattern 1 arpeggio. Okay? And so get all those into your, that's the one thing you want to do is, if you just focus on minor, like starting with A minor, and map in those chord tones, start getting those chord tones ingrained from the 5th fret, from the 5th position to the 12th position, you know, in pattern 1, pattern 4, then the treble parts of 2 and 3, and using the pivot arpeggio as your home base, that's going to give you a lot. And then you can start filling in with the diatonic, Aeolian, Dorian, Phrygian. So Aeolian at 5, Dorian at 10, Phrygian at 12. And you start mix and matching these things. You start picking up pieces of them. Instead of just going up and down, up and down, up and down, you'll figure out how to phrase within. You'll start starting at different places, starting at the different strings and the different fingerings, and so on. Okay, so again, you can play. So let's say we have this, and then add in, then also in the same intervals section, we've got blues minor pentatonic with the blues note. Okay, and so for example, so then just get the topper. And then with all these pentatonic patterns, practice, just don't go up and down. Practice going this way on them. And then practice doing it with 1 string, and then with 2 strings, and then with 3 strings. That's really going to give you a rich vocabulary. So, okay, so then you can play, so let's say you're in A minor, either A minor pentatonic or A minor regular. That's what you can play. You can play A minor pentatonic with the blues note, A Aeolian, D Dorian, E Phrygian. You can play pattern 1 arpeggio, pattern 4 arpeggio, top parts of pattern 2 arpeggio and pattern 3 arpeggio, the pivot arpeggio as a home base. And now let's talk about parallel modes. So I explained what parallel modes was, and so you just don't want to play, so you can play any of the modes that are minor using the same root as the Aeolian. Okay, so you can say, you can play Aeolian here. And then you can also play at this 5th position A Dorian. Okay, and the same thing with Phrygian. And so the way you're going to do that really is you're going to have a backing track going, right? And then you're going to start with, let's say, Aeolian. That was Dorian. Then that's Phrygian. So you want to do it judiciously so it sounds musical, and you don't want to be so modal like I was, switching here and there, but you know. And then, so that's this. So find the pivot arpeggio in another place too. Okay, so play the pivot arpeggio here too. And then find those notes, not necessarily pivot arpeggio like here. See that? And then you'll find out that some of your favorite licks sit within these boxes, like your B.B. King in A minor. So in A minor, just in A minor A7. So here, so let's see what this sits in. So this is right in the so it's in the Dorian box this way. It's in the number 2 in the arpeggios, and it's in the that's pattern in the pentatonic. I forget which pattern that is. It's pattern. It's pattern 3. But so you can start filling in with those diatonic notes. And then the same up here, this one. So you can play those chords. Or, you know, so anyway, you can mix and match those notes with all these things that we're adding. And then also with the parallel, like I said, you could play D or A Dorian and E Phrygian. You could also play these other shapes. So let's say you could play pattern number 1 at position 5. You can play pattern number 1 at position 10 and position 12. So that's kind of another way of doing the blues notes in a parallel way. And so play around with all of that, and I'll make a sample. I already have it posted, a sample soloing exercise where I start with chord tones and then start messing around with the modes and the parallelness. So let's see, I've been going for 24 minutes, so that's long enough. Hope that wasn't too confusing. Hope you found it useful. And if you did, please subscribe to my channel. If you liked the video, please like it and share it with your friends. Thanks for your attention.
Jam track 1.